Welcome. I welcome you to Ran Out of Talent podcast. We can't thank you enough for checking in, taking it in, listening to the stats. Joey Fitzsimmons, co-host. You got Joe Jr. running the show. Me, I'm main man just trying to just rip up a couple freestyles just for you tuning in to Ran Out of Talent. But if you ever run out of talent, don't take no time, don't take anything, just get hold of Junior or Joey and talk.
All right. We are here on a special Tuesday night episode with Matt Olson from MOD Media, MIP, whatever else you know him from. How's it going tonight, Matt?
Oh, it's going awesome, man. Just traveled back from the PNWC, some Mini Z World Championship stuff that we were doing out at RCHQ. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And literally flew in last night, went to my girlfriend's place, drove straight here, and been trying to catch up on everything and also sleep. So, but
Right.
all is good. A lot of fun.
Well, that's good. So that Mini Z Worlds look like a ton of fun. How many entries did they get? Is that a Worlds where you have to qualify or you
So
just
this is a lot like Mini Z as well as probably fifth scale. I guess they're both on both ends of the spectrum.
right?
They're
Exactly.
not actually, even the fifth scale worlds and the Mini Z worlds. It's actually the PNWC, which is the PN Racing World Cup, but people
Right.
consider it
Okay.
the worlds. So it's only that in name, and it's kind of become that for that. So you don't have to qualify. Basically, it's
Right.
only it in name. There's no governing body like IFMAR or ROAR or anything that's divvying down things for qualifications and different stuff. So I guess on the two sides of the spectrum for both 128 scale and fifth scale, they do not have a at least off-road and then on-road for that. They don't have a governing body that makes that so.
Well, not in America. In Europe, fifth scale is huge.
Oh yeah. Oh, they have a Euros for sure.
I
Um,
watched most of the Euros because I have an office job now, so I was able to watch a lot of the fifth scale Euros while I was doing my job. It was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. They have full mechanics, but even there, like the buggy classes are more, prevalent and two-wheel
Yeah,
drive's more prevalent. Truck is kind of still like it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild, I think, versus
sure.
America, where it's I would say the most popular class. So
Oh,
there's a
absolutely.
there's a difference in kind of what it is.
Right, right. Yeah, so I had a bunch of questions. I'm looking at my phone because that's where my questions are. So I got to ask everybody who comes onto this podcast because RC is so niche. How did you get started in it personally?
Long story short, my dad ended up taking me to the park. He had an old Yokomo,
God.
um, uh, chain drive, four-wheel drive,
Yes.
and with the really small tires. And
Yep.
I would drive that in the park in grass, and I thought it was so cool because, like, when you got, RC cars from Walmart or Target or whatever, you couldn't take them apart. I thought it's so cool. You could
Right.
take the body clips off and undercover, the body, and everything was inside of it. And that, as I was probably like 7 or 8, that intrigued me. And I actually bought my brother's double XT, went to
Oh,
SoCal, and the rest is pretty much history. And
that's
it's been part of my life ever since. So since I was about 10, I've been racing in some form.
that's awesome. Yeah, I've been doing it since I've been about 6 years old, and I got started in similar ways. My dad got me into it also. Started out with a Kyosho 112 scale nitro truck that had a saw pole to start it. So you fed
Way
it in,
cool.
you pulled it all the way out, and then you fed it in again. And yeah. Scott and Chad are tuning in. Hey guys, how's it going? Those are some local. You might have met Chad in Muscatine, but you probably met a lot of guys in Muscatine.
Met a lot of people. I'm terrible with names in all honesty.
Ah,
I'm looking it up right now. Scott Schultz. See if
Scott
he has a
Schultz.
picture of his mug on there.
No, you wouldn't. Scott Schultz, him and his boy used to race back in the day, but
Okay.
Chad Johnson was
Ah,
in
here we go.
Chad Johnson was in Muscatine with his boy Xander. Xander does some pretty cool FPV stuff for he does what I do on like
Yes.
a TikTok channel, but he does way more and he's way more committed. Like I'll do a FPV video for my fifth scale, but he does something from every track he goes to. It's pretty cool.
Right on. Yeah, I probably met him out there. I'm terrible with
Well,
names.
yeah, no, I'm the same way. And you were, do you ever get this? And I was talking about this earlier today. I always get, not always, I'd say once or twice a year, guys come up to me. I used to race with you and your dad back in 1994. Do you remember me? And it's like, ah, no, that was like 30 years ago, and I haven't seen you since.
Yeah, I get it. And people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I used to race with you." And I'm like, "Yes, we did."
Yep, exactly.
You
It's
know,
like
that's
I believe
that's the
you 'cause
easiest way. You know, it
yeah,
could be true, it could be not true. They'll never know.
exactly. Bowman tuning in. Yeah, so you started racing when you were 10 and obviously you got the bug, you started wrenching and all that. How did you get into the industry? Like, did you start at MIP?
So no, I've been in the industry since shoot, it was my first job. I worked at OCRC. If that'd be considered
Okay.
industry,
Oh, absolutely.
I was one of the hobby shop guys that was there. That was my first job.
Okay.
Um, and so I was there for about a year and a half, and then that was when it was actually Gyro Hobbies. So
Oh,
Gyro Hobbies was the hobby shop portion of OCRC, and then OCRC was just the track, and they would rent it.
yep.
When they had a changing of the guard from Gyro to OCRC, they thinned the staff and everything, and my position was gone.
Yeah.
And then I had friends that were there, and Carl Hyman, he worked at Extreme RC Magazine. That's the one that had all the chicks in it.
Yes.
Because there was a couple big magazines. There was Driver, RC Car Action, and Extreme,
Did
and those are the
Extreme do the Triple X main videos?
yeah, that was also part of it. And then that
Those were some of
some of
my
those
favorite.
guys went to Velocity, which is an online magazine, which now
Mhm.
has the Triple X main guys, and then
Okay.
so everything like that. But yeah, so then I just was doing basically cleaning the back room. You know, they had a huge warehouse there with RC cars. I was
Yep.
building car kits. This is when I was 17 or 18. And I was making $10 underneath the table, you know, for an
Yeah.
hour. At first, I started as I just interned for 3 months. My mom would drive me there. I didn't have a license at the time.
Okay.
Um, my mom would drive me there. She would go to like a local thrift store and help them out there, and I'd work for 4 hours for the day, so like 3 days a week.
Okay.
That happened for about 3 months. Then I ended up starting to drive myself. They ended up hiring me on for $40 a day, and I was building car kits, and eventually ended up where I started to go to college. They're like, "Hey, can you write?" And then I was a contributing writer for them. I was starting to travel to go to events and cover events for them. And then that led me into doing a full page article for MIP, which was on their
Oh,
bypass system. And I went and met Brandon and Eustace at MIP, talked to them for a little bit. And this was before the falling of Extreme,
yep.
and Extreme ended up, little known to us, all the workers, they had IRS problems. And
Yeah.
basically, I got a phone call from one of my coworkers. He's like, "Hey, dude, nobody wanted to tell you, but Extreme is done. Um, they had they had IRS problems, and when you come in, all your stuff is still there, but it's over. You don't have a job anymore." And
Yeah.
then my boss at the time had called up Eustace and said, "Hey, you know, I know you met Matt. He's a special kid. If you guys need somebody, you should give them a chance. So I went to interview there at MIP for just customer service, and they need somebody that could write.
Yep.
Um, and then ended up where I got hired that day and to be their customer service guy. Later on, transferred into driving for them as kind of their main promotions guy and marketing guy,
Yep.
as well as knowing kind of what our capabilities were, helping with design. Um, and then did a lot of that, transferred and being the team manager for that, and then worked there for 7 years, 8 years, and then Mod was kind of born out of MIP. Out of the ashes from a lot of their products that they ended up like the fifth scale
Right.
stuff.
I
They
was
said they
gonna
didn't want to
say,
do anymore. The puck stuff they didn't want to do anymore, and that was kind of like a lot of what I had. I had my hand in a lot of that stuff, and then so they said, well, if you want to, take it over and fund it, we can still manufacture it for you. And it
yep.
kind of just evolved from there. And then the media came out of the fifth scale uh, series that we do,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's the ball's been rolling and it's getting faster.
Yeah. Hi to Chad and Sean and Holmberg and Fisher and Schultz and Wes and Choban. Best line of the episode. Every time I was called special as a kid, it wasn't a good thing. Dwayne says, "What's up, fellas? He needs
Happening.
puck system for Schumachers."
Yeah, we've talking about one of my close team drivers. I can't say anything yet, but one of my close
Right.
team drivers, he's possibly thinking about going there. So I think we'll be doing some. I've been kind of looking like we've had the AE and the TLR stuff
Yep.
for a while now, and there's always been that and no offense against any company, but there's always
No.
been like that third tier company like
Yeah.
Kyosho was at the time, like Schumacher is, X-Ray,
Were you
PR
around?
Racing.
Yep. Were you around when Schumacher was like the redheaded stepchild in the 90s? Like they were there and they were competitive, but they were kind of always on that outside fringe.
No, I didn't race as much in the 90s. Like mine was like
Okay.
in the 2000s when I kind of
Gotcha.
first started. But I had always known it was there, but they were always known for like their AstroTurf, right? And we don't race on
Right.
that here in
Yeah.
the States.
No,
And
but
I
back, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I actually ran for them in my MIP days for a year. I was one of their main team. I was one of their team drivers here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But at the time, they had like four two wheels.
Yeah.
They had their four wheel was changing, and everything was a lot different than all kind of the U.S. stuff. And it was very very good company, very nice owners.
Yeah.
They were awesome. I did well with the four wheel drive. I took third behind, I think it was Cavallari and Rivkin at the time. I beat
Okay.
Hartson and I think Evans, and it
Yeah.
was a good car. They're a lot of fun. The two wheel needed work, but I think
The
they've improved a lot over the last couple years.
They have. They're no longer that fringe. They have a very competitive platform in both two wheel and four wheel. I heard their truck is pretty good too. I'm not sure. I haven't driven one, but I've seen them and they look pretty good at going around the track. Um,
Yeah, I've heard they drive amazing. The newer two wheel is like this is like one of the best two wheels I've ever driven.
yeah.
Um, And Muzz over there, I've always contacted him, and he's a wicked good dude. The Schumacher family and everything that they're doing, and kind of they are racers. They do a lot of racing stuff, and I'm about that. And I'm probably going to get an LD2 myself
Okay.
or LD3 now, uh,
LD3. Yeah.
and try it out. And we'll have some stuff for that. I think probably hopefully beginning of next year is kind of our goal.
So I was sponsored. Schumacher was like one of my first chassis sponsors. Um, I had them in 2010. So they had the Cat SV, or no, it's the Cougar SV and the Cat SX2 is what I had. And at the time, we were still racing on that medium grip, loamy black dirt, running double Ds and whatnot. And the Cougar, the two wheel, just
Yes.
it didn't work. But that Cat SX2 was the best wheeler on the track at the time. So it's like I had not the best two wheel in the world to represent, but I had the best wheeler. But then a guy in our area named Andrew Mowry, he owns MMR Racing. You might know him. I'm sure you know him because the MMR, they sold your FG stuff, all your fifth scale. They sold a ton of fifth scale stuff back in the day. And he actually tried getting back in, didn't try. He got back into it, but then he sold it all again and all that junk. But Andrew put down AstroTurf. Yeah, I called Muzz. I'm like, this was like in 2010. I had to wait. I think I had to wait till late at night to call him. And he actually got excited. He goes, all right, Joe, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to send you these tires and these springs and all. He got super excited. I put that Cougar on the AstroTurf and it's like, oh, I get it now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Muzz is always a super good dude.
Muzz, super good dude. But yeah, it's I think they've got something good. I think, Brock got on there. He's talented,
Yeah. Oh,
obviously. And I think what it's done is it's really showed that those cars can be competitive on dirt. Um,
yes.
Obviously, turf and carpet is starting to infiltrate the US a lot more than what it did in the past, I would say 5 years. It's starting
Yeah.
to trend that way. Because we're seeing that shift now where that it's very difficult to have tracks with dirt in it and the
Yeah.
humidity and all that poses and the issues with just land and buildings and everything, and it's so easy to adjust turf and carpet and the jumps, and it's
Right.
clean, and
Yeah.
I get it. I love dirt myself. um but it's one of those things where you see the trend.
I'll tell you
um
what, if I had the Hobbyplex to race at, I would not even put a car on carpet.
yeah.
But I do love carpet also, but it's one you're right, and it's like every track in Minnesota, every dirt track has absolutely destroyed the HVAC system.
Yeah.
We used to run indoor nitro in a low ceiling place. It was actually pretty disgusting back in like 2004 to 2006. And they left, and I heard horror stories as like $40,000 to fix everything and all that. Speaking of though, so has that church taken over OCRC yet, or did they just?
No, it
Oh,
it ended up there's been different contradictory rumors for it. But from what I know, it's now a warehouse.
oh,
Um, so that can kind of tell you what that is, and basically, from what I hear, the original owner of the buildings that own that entire complex, the front, the rear, the church, the everything,
yep,
they he was super cool with RB and Nick, and loved them.
yeah,
They always paid their rent on time. They did their thing. Well, the old man was starting to get older, and I think he either
yeah.
died or something happened. But his at the end of the day, his son took it over, and his son ended up they didn't he didn't like OCRC,
Oh,
and at the end of the day, and
okay,
and then the church people, they always had to so I don't know if they were a scapegoat for it. um, but then the rumor was like, oh, well, the church, they need more space, as well as like that the rumor had it at first that it was going to, the church wants this property. They're going to pay me whatever I basically want for it, so I'm going to rent to them.
okay.
Well, they never even moved in there.
That's
It
what
just
you were
became,
saying.
it
Yeah,
just became a warehouse.
yeah.
So,
I talked to you
um,
about it in May, and
yeah.
you're like, "Yeah, it's still empty." I'm like, "It's May and it's still empty." Huh.
Yeah, it pretty much where I think it was just at the time it would have just been like, oh yeah, I've got a renter for this. You guys are out. And then they're like, well, we can't afford this because this was like 16 to 22 grand a month, like
Oh,
expensive. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So that's how much it was. And they were bumping their rent. Like I had heard it had gone from like 16 to 20 and they were going to pay it. And then it was like trying to go up to like 23 or something like that. And they're like, there's no way, dude.
so they're
So,
intentionally just trying to push you out.
oh, they're just trying to push them out. So
Yeah.
at first it was like, well, the church was like, oh, we'll pay whatever, you want kind of a thing. And
Yep.
either it went that way or the guy was like, hey, we just want these renters out because they kind of shared a parking lot. And yeah, it sucks because that really hurt the SoCal scene for dirt 10 scale racing.
Right.
We have a couple we got still obviously SDRC.
Yep.
We have Coyote and we have Rainman's in Bakersfield. So there's
Okay.
Bakersfield, Victorville, and San Diego, which still, but they're all within a 1 to 2.5 hour radius of kind of
Mm.
like everybody of us in SoCal. And we have some 8 scale tracks, and then actually our local track, which is actually 30 seconds from Mod right now, where I'm sitting at, is
Yeah.
called Huckleberry, and it's at
Okay.
the Santa Ana River Lakes, and it's a little outdoor track that they only run electric 8 scale short course, can run electric off road 10 scale, but it really hasn't come back yet. But we're going to be hopefully opening up a hobby shop here in the next couple months, and that's going to
That's
help facilitate that. And I actually run the club program down there on a weekly basis to help.
nice. That
Um,
does help.
yeah, so that's in Anaheim.
Yeah. Before I get into my next question, let's take care of some of the listener questions. He goes, "What's the best fifth scale track you guys race on so far?" My best is Sean Van Dalen's track at FTR. What's yours, Matt?
Um, there's just different areas of it, right? From facility to track to, what's fun. I think probably one of the most fun tracks that I've been to now was the East Coast Nationals,
Yep.
um, out at Rocky Hill Raceway. That's in New Hampshire.
Chris was telling
Um,
me about that.
it was so much fun. All the people were amazing. And what really stood out for me there was the elevation changes. Like you'd be climbing a hill, man, and you'd like shifting gears in your car and like shooting up this tabletop, and it was like and they ran it both directions. So they ran it
Really?
one direction, then the other direction. So you'd come down and step down this thing and you'd be dropping down 30 feet. So your thing would be like,
Wow.
coming down. And so that was a lot of fun. As far as for a fifth scale track as of recent.
Yeah.
Another one that was fun was Walton. That's up in Canada, but that's not really a designated fifth scale track. It was like a
Right.
50s track for the Canadian Nationals. That was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
then another one I like is the Dirt. We're going to be there actually in a week for our finals for the Mod Championship finals. That's super fun. I like more technical tracks personally with the fifth scales.
Yeah. You
Um,
got to put a radio in Chase Ehrlich's hand.
yes, from Racecraft. I
Yes.
think he would love it. Yeah. So and when 8 scale guys they drive fifth scale, they're like, this is the most fun I've ever had driving a car. Like they're a ton of fun. Like when you get a good one.
That's
And I think
I
there's
got
that
hooked.
stigma.
I got hooked off of a box stock 5T.
Yeah.
I've been racing for so many years and nothing has ever hooked me like a fifth scale has.
They are a ton of fun. The people are really cool. But yeah, for like these guys when they go out there and people are always like, well, I've seen them and they just don't look that quick and this and that. But when you get one in your hands and like actually, and now, Job, we met at Silver State,
Yeah.
and we're getting all the components at the time, like coming from like a box stock to like where you are now,
Yeah.
it's a total different thing. And like I always make the comparison, Mayfield had came out to during COVID, had come out to
Yep.
one of the mod races at Fear Farm, where the
Okay.
dirt used to be for the Dirt Nitro
Yes.
Challenge back in the day. Now it's run by a fifth scale club that's there. And we had a mod race that was out there, and we had both fifth scale and eighth scale, and we usually now tie them all together.
Yeah.
It's a fifth scale event, but we have the local eighth scales. We invite them along, and they like to check it
Yeah.
out, and it's cool. We have a 1 day event for just them.
Cool.
And he was out there, and Mayfield drove my car. He goes, "Dude, this thing has more steering than my Mugen at the time." And he's like, "This is ridiculous." And then just for comparison on that track alone, like Mayfield's time versus my time, I was a second and a half off for fast lap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
That's
can
about where
see
you're at.
the speed difference, is actually not that much in between eighth scale and fifth scale, but because the size of them, they look smaller. If you don't
Yeah.
bottleneck the cars, they're, in the corners, they're very, very quick,
They are.
so it's a ton of fun.
What I
It's
noticed
a ton of
is,
fun.
the rougher the tracks get, the more fun the fifth scales are. To where
Oh, easily.
when the track gets more rough with an eighth scale, it's like you're just battling the track and you're not. But the fifth scales, like it was a landmine in Vegas, but the trucks handled it wonderfully,
Oh,
and it
we're
was
ripping
so much
because
fun.
they're so heavy and the tires are so big, they create
Yeah,
their own traction.
exactly.
So yeah, they're a ton of fun. Silver State, I would say that's my most fun event
Yeah,
that we go to. So
right,
if like tracks, the other ones, Silver State, I love the track. It's not, don't get me wrong, but I love the event and being in Vegas and partying.
yeah.
It's a whole event. It's a whole time. Like uh,
Like
we're in Vegas, we're having fun, but RC racing, that's just the cherry on top.
it would be cool if we could do the fifth scale on the main track, but I get why we don't, because those trucks, I mean, it gets rough on the main A scale track, but those trucks would really tear it up.
And it's one of those things where the only things that the fifth scales do is they beat up pipe sometimes. But
Yes.
even on when they had the little, sandbags, we destroyed like two pipes,
Yeah.
at the end of it, which isn't a lot at all.
No.
But what it is the stigma. You're gonna have like a lot of eight scale guys, and they may, butcher me for this, but they complain a lot. And if they're not into it and they're not doing it, then they're going to be like, oh, they're going to complain wholeheartedly that the fifth scales are messing everything up, and the
Right.
track and this and that. And there's just no need for the drama with it. And I can understand it too. Like if you get a really good grouping of fifth scale guys that are really talented, it could be different than kind of fifth scale guys that are just starting out, that are more in the sportsman style level.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, I could agree with them on it. But if you get a really good grouping out there, it could be a really cool dynamic. But I understand why they don't do that. That's why when we have the mod fifth scale series, it's a fifth scale race, but we have the eighth scale guys come in, and
Right.
they have a lot of fun because they going in, they know that that's what's going on.
Right. Right. So one thing, our local complaint in Minnesota is marshaling them. And what I tell people, what I tell everybody, I said, nobody's going to get mad at you. Double check, look both ways. Double check, go as slow as you need to go. Grab that truck however you're comfortable. Nobody's going to touch the throttle. I watched my son, who just turned 12, marshal one just fine. It's like he wasn't quick about it. But if you crash with the fifth scale, and this is what I learned in Vegas, if you crash, it doesn't matter how fast you are, you're out. I mean,
Yeah, there's time
not
to make
out,
up.
out,
There
but
is. You were in a hyper focused area though. Like Silver State brings out the best of the best,
yes,
and there is time to battle back and catch back up. But yeah, that's in any form of racing, right?
right.
You don't want to make mistakes. But yeah, the marshaling, it doesn't scare many people. You just have to be cognizant of your surroundings, and then also have a
Yeah,
good announcer that's letting the drivers know, hey, watch out for this
that
section,
too.
stuff like that, to say, there's a car down or something like that. And then obviously be off the throttle, like you're saying.
But it's also so new in Minnesota. Brian Bowman
Oh, yeah.
started it at
Yeah.
Thunder Road, and then I kind of continued promoting it wherever. Kyle's wondering, so will Matt be running a Schumacher Stadium truck on loan from his current team guy?
I don't know. We will see. I
Yeah.
actually really like I'm running that Visions truck right now, the TLR Visions truck. It's like TLR, AE,
Yep.
and Velocity. Like I've got an AE front and rear end on the thing, the Velocity chassis for the TLR, a
Yeah.
TLR rear end for the four-wheel. It's an amalgamation of all sorts of stuff, but
Yeah.
ended up winning the series this year. And I think I could have done better at the finals, but
Yeah.
had some bad luck.
That
So.
was that had to have been like the most difficult group of stadium truck guys there were.
And they were all like, in all honesty, everybody was clean.
Yeah.
I just had terrible luck when third place flipped over. He started skidding, and I was like, oh, I'll check up. And then I was like going around it, and it slid into my truck, put me into the wall. And then I got off of him, clipped his wheel, and then I went down into a ditch. I was like, oh
I
my God.
was calling that race on mod, and Chris is in my ear running the camera, and he's swearing like, "Oh, it's like, yeah,
It was just one of those things where it was a racing incident, and the
yeah,
guy came to me after and he apologized, and I'm like, dude, and I pushed all the entire time to get back up to third.
yeah,
I think I had something for the win, but
yeah, absolutely,
it you just can't make a mistake in carpet. Like
no,
it's unreal. Um, it's unreal,
especially
like how one line carpet is. I think that's kind of the complaint that some guys have
that,
with
that
carpet
layout.
and turf is because
That
you can't, sorry.
no, I was gonna say that layout was extremely fast too.
Oh, extremely fast. And the Island Speedway, that was an amazing facility. I loved it. I loved the event. It was great. Hopefully we're going to go back there in 2024. We'll see. I know J Concepts is still making uh some decisions on tracks and everything, but
Yep,
the family was really nice. I had a lot of fun out there. But just what I've noticed in my 3 times I've basically raced this surface, qualifying is so important,
yep,
because you got people that are just icemen out there, and even if they're slower, you know, you got to pass them clean, and sometimes you're checking up different stuff, and it's difficult, to make those passes. Where dirt, you kind of got that little bit of slide, you can get into the side of somebody and kind of rubbins racing. There ain't no
yeah,
rubbins racing in turf and carpet. Like, you hit somebody, they're going over.
they're
Like, it's
flying. Yeah,
almost guaranteed.
yeah. Bender checking in, Asat, Madison Osted, all checking in. Awesome. Hey guys. Jeremiah Lukasevich is wondering, since you got hooked on the Midwest down in Iowa a month back, what are your chances your crew wants to come do a Minnesota Nitro series event? No, that is a question. So on average, and you might want to not want to get into the dirty math on this, but what does it cost to bring mod media out to an event?
So I have been working on this though.
Because I know you have
Before,
deals with certain, like with the NCTS. I know you have
yeah,
deals.
like the J Concepts series, we have a certain deal, you could say, or a certain agreement where it's one flat fee
Yeah.
for all the events that we do.
Chris's
Um,
answer: food.
yeah, which is one flat fee that we do for them, and whether if it's more at some events or less for others, whether we're closer, we're flying um different places, it's just one flat fee, and then it makes it easy for them to budget. So we may make more on one event, we may make less on another, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
um but we've come into a time now that shifted all in the last couple months of our crew.
Yeah.
And now we have what I'm calling like a tier one, tier two, tier three structure. So
Right.
like tier one would be, a general setup that would include basically myself and Chris as he
Yep.
popped on. He's kind of our main cameraman. That's over the last year, I've been taking him to all the races, and kind of the guy that I'm like, okay, 'cause he works for us full time. I
Yeah.
can count on him because I'm basically like, hey, dude, we're going here this weekend. And he's like, okay, and we're just able to do it. So that'd be like tier one, which would be a two-man crew that would consist of one camera guy, because I used to do it all myself when I first started it,
I remember that.
um, for Mod Live Media, and I would do everything. I would do the commentary. It was like, you ever see the side street guy where he's playing, the drums and the
Yeah.
flute and the
One
and
man
the
band.
everything, and it's one man band, and it got to the point where I'm one of those people where I'm not satisfied with mediocre, or I always like constant improvement. I've learned from one of my mentors that if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
And that's the same thing with like the media that we do. If I'm not getting better doing it, then why do it at all?
Right.
As far as like for myself, because we don't make much money doing it, so I have fun doing it, but we still need to make money, and I want to create
Yes.
more value for the viewers, and I want to make us look professional so that hopefully maybe people in RC will and that's in RC, but as well as that's out of RC, like, oh, this is cool. I would like to get one of those and help grow the hobby. Like that's Mod Live Media started because I wanted to grow the hobby.
Right.
And that's kind of our mission statement with it.
Yeah.
And so once we did the Worlds coverage at Hobby Action, and I didn't know how that was going to go. That was like a 9-person crew. And I
Yeah.
think that really accelerated us to the forefront. Like we were already good, but it was like, okay, these guys are
That
legit.
that was legitimately one of the best I've ever seen. I want to say that it beat Live RC in 2010 Thailand, and that was the best I saw up to that point. John Bolton was wondering, after the excellent Worlds coverage, has the phone lit up more? Also, how was it tackling 3 events in one weekend?
Yeah, so and we'll touch on what we were saying before to answer John's question.
Okay.
Um the phone, yes, it's always constantly buzzing as
Yeah.
far as like for events and different things. Um I think it's more so now where I might be saying now, okay, well, what level of coverage do you guys want? Because of the fact that now they've seen this, now people have expectations, right?
Right.
Like the world's coverage was an exponential amount of money to put on, like
Mhm.
over 10 grand. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that.
Well,
Because you've got 9 people down there, food, travel, flying people in, and we're there for a week and a half. So
how many
guys might
camera
say
guys do you have?
we had 3 camera guys and
Okay.
trading them out,
Yep.
because they were on it. We had, um, and then people would transfer out for. I was the main producer, but we would transfer out producers where I'd train them because I needed a break.
Yeah.
um and at even that number that we were at, I maybe made $1,000 for the weekend because all the equipment that we needed, I didn't budget it. I should have budgeted it more. But it's an exponential amount of money because when you put this thing on, you've got, you're paying people, you're flying them in, you're paying for everybody's food, paying for the Airbnb. You've got 2 weeks, you've got more equipment that you need for redundant systems. It was a huge undertaking, and it was the most like I don't really get nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous for Worlds because it's one of those things where like you only get one shot, one opportunity, in the words of Eminem.
Yeah.
That you have to do well. Like you can't not do well at it. So I put a lot of weight on my shoulders as well as, everybody that's there where we all expect excellence, but the guys we hired on, like Jason Bollinger,
Yeah.
he shot the world as well as he's been doing some J concept stuff. You'll see him at more events, and
Okay.
he's been my friend for years since my
Sure.
extreme days, and even before that I knew him. And he does bar none such good coverage with the photos and
Absolutely.
everything. And I saw that where we've been good at the live coverage, and I've wanted to bring in photography. I'm like, well, I'll get a camera, this and that. You just don't have the time. Like there's no time to do it.
Yeah.
And like if I were to try and break away and do it, um, and also have good live coverage, you just run out of people. And bringing him in and on and covering the event from both the photo side to the video side and kind of bringing those two together, I was very impressed with the analytics and the coverage of it. So that's why we're kind of going to this more tiered structure. So it just depends on what that venue needs for that weekend and what type of level of coverage that they want. But generally speaking, we have to get out there. We have to feed our crew. There's money on top. We're not going to go broke doing it. We still have
Right.
bills to pay and everything like that.
Yes. Absolutely. Before I get into my next question, Brandon Van Vanwater is wondering, a while ago, Joe and Ryan talked about new adjustable valve shocks that were crazy expensive. Does anyone know what happened? I'm just going to answer it quick. I was going to say Wally tried them and we never heard anything about them. So I think I think for A scale, they just weren't it. So I have another MIP question because I've been doing this since, I'm old. I'm 41 years old, but I've been doing this since I was 6 years old. So MIP's been a part of my RC life the whole time. So when you were at MIP, did you see any rare like vintage prototypes, like things that would make Dirk Anderson just lose his mind?
Well, there's always the famous the four-wheel drive conversion,
Oh, have you seen
that
what those are
people
going
love.
for?
Like what, 3 grand now, 4 grand?
I've seen 4 to 5 grand, depending if they have like that green or pink chassis. They're going
There's an orange one that Eustace has, and
okay.
he's got two or three of them that are in there. I don't know if they're chain or
That's
belt.
retirement fun.
So he's got a couple of them in there, but none of the other stuff actually exists. Eustace
Okay,
is very when Eustace is done with a project, Eustace is done with a project.
gotcha.
And stuff will sit for a little bit if they have to reuse molds or something like that. If not, it gets scrapped and done.
Yeah,
Anything old gets tossed. So at the time, how would you ever know? Like it'd be like the 1967 Shelby Mustang. You can pick those up for 5 grand in the 70s and 80s or whatever, and then they became
yeah,
a cult favorite, right? You
yeah.
don't
They
know.
blew up.
Yeah, you don't know that they're going to be worth $500,000 or something like that,
Right.
pristine.
Yeah,
So he didn't know to hermit away 5,000 of these kits from back in the day in their original boxes. Like it's one of those things. Project's done. He didn't know it was going to be iconic, and that stuff is gone. And we've had other stuff where we prototype a bunch of stuff um that just didn't work.
yeah,
Stuff that we would do from drivetrain to different stuff, handmade stuff, where it just didn't work. So some of that stuff you just never see, or it did work, or is too expensive or complicated to make production, so it would just never come to fruition. Um, but yeah, there was a good example as the Pro 8 we had, where it was that conversion kit where we had for the Pro 4 for the SCTE at the time, that I kind of became known for the four-wheel drive
yes.
SCT, and then they kind of ended up, that was kind of the 2.0 later on.
I was gonna
Um,
say, didn't wasn't that whole design taken for being nice about it?
it I would say that they said at the time, I don't know, I'm not going to get into issues with it,
Yeah.
but basically, it was possible for what they did with the thing to go to that, and I would say that just the performance package at the time proved that that was a good way to go with it. If
Yes.
that's the best way to do it, because it is their car. We flipped around the bones, and it was a better layout, and then they're like, that shit's a better layout. So then they,
Yes.
obviously that became the 2.0. Whichever way you want to look at it, I'm not gonna, say anything. Horizon's an awesome company.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is.
Well, I remember
And
back in the day, that was the only truck that could compete with the Techno.
yeah, and it was amazing. And then we actually had the Pro 8, which was used to say, hey, we made like a super light 8 scale. And it had its inherent issues, but I actually had a custom made chassis that we had for that, and I still have it to this day. And it moved the motor, like everybody's going to the motor forward position
Yep.
now, in the front left with the batteries. I was doing that with the Pro 8. I actually had a magazine with a Team Associated RC8 that I did for the magazine. 'Cause they all,
Okay.
put the saddles in the back and everything,
Yes.
motor up front. I did that
Yes.
with an RC8. We did it in a magazine. So they're like, "Oh, this is the shit." I
It's
had
like
that done back in like 2012.
2009. Yeah,
It was something
that's
like that, like
awesome.
2011 or something like that, where I was like, yeah, I was bitching back then, uh, I think I ran dual saddles. That's what I had on there. I had two cells, or
Yeah.
all one cells, but they were saddle packs to make it a four cell.
Oh, so
And I
you
had,
were
I
2
had that.
jumpers
Yep, I
or
had that.
yeah.
I had that in the back, and then I moved the motor up front, and then I moved you could like shave the inside, and I flipped the diffs around so that then you didn't have to shift the motor rotation inside your speed control. You could flip the diffs, and then the diffs would make it go the other direction.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That
I
is
still have that car. It's sitting in my room.
yeah. So we talked about how you got started with mod because MIP was kind of done with the fifth scale stuff and all that other stuff. So, um, did you have the ideas to make it grow past what you were doing with MIP fifth scale stuff? Or did that come later on? Like, did you have those ideas for like brakes and shocks and other stuff immediately? Or did you just start and kind of just super small ideas and build to something larger?
So what ended up happening and it's all true. Um, what ended up happening is they were looking at the numbers, and fifth scale was on the downturn.
Oh, yeah.
Um, nobody was, the tracks were all going away. This is in like 2017, 2018. Tracks are all going away.
Yep.
Um, and we had already infiltrated the market. The stuff was already really good. And then it's one of those things where like, it's a good point. If you're not growing, you're dying,
Yes.
and the numbers are trending down. So like, okay, every time we do like a set of shock builds, it's 20 grand, to do
Yeah,
a run of shocks,
absolutely.
20 plus, it's 20 plus, and to do a run of them. So you have to look at it like, okay, what's my ROI on it? What, is this gonna, do we still have to send Matt out to make this, and pay me to go out there to do it? So it has that cost. And or have we made this platform the best that it can be, and now we're grasping at straws?
Yep.
So they were running the numbers, and grantedly so, I agree with them when it was a 20-person company. But
Yes.
what if this could be done with a 1 to 2 to 3 person company?
Yep.
You know, so your overhead's lower. Um, you're able to, do it where you don't have to. If you're the owner of it, then it could make more sense. Um, so at the time for fifth scale, it was like my hobby. I really loved it,
Mhm.
and it ended up being where I said, how about I just be Ghost? I was just gonna fund it,
Yep.
and MIP was, it'd still sell from the website. It would still, it'd still be underneath their name. I had a full list of stuff, from all the changes that needed to be made to the current product line, that I sent to Eustace, and he basically, he's like, no, sell all the stuff, get rid of it all.
Yeah.
We're done. It's done. So I told him, I had another meeting with him, and I said, hey, what do you think about me taking it over, and doing that? He's like, that's an interesting idea. And then it got, after a couple email exchanges, it would have just been too convoluted with the money,
Yes.
for like how that would have worked out. So he just said, he's like, Matt, you're gonna have to start your own company.
Gotcha.
And that's how it started, and he's like, you're gonna have to sell it yourself, um and do everything yourself. It can't be shipped through here, nothing like that. You're gonna have to ship it yourself. You're gonna have to do everything yourself, because just the money didn't work out for, like, if it's an MIP, then you get this percentage, and it's just, it's kind of one of those things where you have somebody, and it's not making sense to be burdened with this.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I agree with him, you know, at the end of the day. And, you know, so, but it's one of those things where you have the infrastructure from the shipping people to website, everything's there. You know, they just have to click buy, and then it's like Amazon and it goes out and it's turnkey, right?
Yes.
I had to then do everything. I had to, you know, do the packaging. I had to, you know, create the website. I had to, you know, learn how to build a website. I didn't know how to do that before.
Right.
I had to get my own header cards made. You know, just the plates for header cards are $600. You know, to do a run of
Absolutely.
header cards is $2,500. The
Yes.
printer forum's $2,500. Everything's $2,500. So I had to use and fund my own money, you know, and I didn't take a loan from anybody.
That's good.
My parents, you know, obviously live with my parents, but you know, still paid them money. But I had to, you know, I had to fund everything myself. So I would take all the little sales I did get, you know, and automatically go back in to the business. I worked out of MIP's uh, shop for about a year, um, until like basically it was about, I'd say halfway through the year. I was working for 6 months. I was still working as mod and MIP.
Okay.
Mod became more mod. I don't say it was successful, but it required more time. I was working like 16-hour days.
Oof.
When I would be done with my MIP shift, I would then basically put my mod cap on, you
Yeah.
know, and I would start working my mod shift, you know, till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And I had my little trailer outside the shop, so sometimes I'd go and sleep in there, and then just go back into the shop in the morning because I'd have the keys and
Yeah.
code and everything like that. So, and I was renting, you know, I would, you know, just be working both. And then it becomes something where you can't spend as much time on one, so both of them aren't getting fed, right? So Eustace is like, well, what about if you just, you know, did mod full time and gave it a chance? And so we agreed. So we able to come to a deal. I rented an office there for another 6 months, and then after that, I outgrew that. And then I'm actually in the shop right now that I've had since. So I've been
Oh,
self-employed for about 4 years. Mod Live Media got birthed out of the series.
yep.
And then I've got another shop that we now have up front that's going to be the hobby shop. We just have to get the time to do it. Um, and yeah, so and it's been a journey. You know, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, we got a couple of good questions, but a lot of people don't understand. And I just got in this side of my job recently. I got, I do quoting and customer service and dealing with vendors and all that. What a lot of people don't understand is that fine balance. So let's say I make you 100 widgets. That's going to cost you 1.8 per part. If I make you 1,000, that's going to cost you one time. So that's what it actually costs if I make you the 1,000. If I make you 10,000, it's going to cost point 0.8. It's going to cost 80% of what each part would at 1,000. But at what point are you stuck with way too much inventory and tooling costs and production hiccups and hangups and something's at a heat treater for too long, and a lot of people like Lance is wondering where your when T6.2 outdrives will be back in stock. I bet they're stuck at the anodizers. Anodizers are always very fast or very slow, I've learned.
It's funny that you actually say that. I swear to God, I just got off the phone 3 hours ago, with our head engineer at MIP,
Yeah.
and you know, I was talking to him about projects. We have a new that axle that I was showing you,
Yep.
um, at Island. You know, I was talking to him about some design changes that I'd like to make and different stuff, and we're going through projects. And you know, and today he just told me that our anodizer that we have, he goes, yeah, we're looking for a new anodizer. I won't say their name.
Yeah.
But and I'm like, oh, did they screw something up? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, did they screw something up for both you and I? And he's like, yeah. So
Oh,
those out drives that they're making right now, that I'm waiting on that to complete T6 stuff,
yeah,
and the B6 stuff and everything for the puck systems for gear diffs. I had 1,200 of those
yeah,
out drives made. He
right.
said that maybe half of them will be okay because
Did
they
they
messed
mess
them
up?
up and they tried to fix it and they tried to strip them,
Ooh,
and
mm-mm.
they're hard anodized. You can't strip hard anodized.
Nope.
It changes the tolerances. And
Yes.
when you have those bearing tolerances that we need, it messes them up. So some of them are good and some of them are not good. So they're having to go through and go through every single piece of the
The-
1,200
Yep.
to make sure that they're good. So some are good and some are 3,000ths too small. So
Yeah.
they'll go and they'll wiggle inside the out drives.
Right.
So
Do you
like a
know?
lot of, yeah,
Yeah.
it sucks.
I was gonna say, do you know how often we have guys at my shop sitting there going through thousands of parts with the caliper and a mic, being like bad, good, bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just one of those things with manufacturing,
It
and
is.
then we've got a lot of parts too sometimes that are just sitting in dead, or you're able to repurpose them from stuff later on, and
Yeah.
yeah, manufacturing issues and COVID hit and the prices are jacked and you have inflation, and then people are like, why is stuff so expensive? And it's like, because everything's more expensive,
Yeah. Oh, you should
but
see. When I've lowered
there's
a couple people's prices from just whatever hot rolled steel,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
they are shocked.
oh yeah,
I'm like five,
nothing,
10% cheaper apart. And they're like, oh my God, you're lowering the price. It's like, well, yeah, material costs have come down slightly.
yeah,
That's
and it's for raw goods, that's really good,
yeah.
and that can be, and that's pretty, you're able to control that a lot more. But, when you're going to it for like employees pay and electric and,
Yes.
rent and, gas and everything else, it's crazy how stuff, but we try and also keep, uh, to those, lower prices, that we're able to do. But it just is what it is at the end of the day to create stuff here in the US.
Yep.
As well as we don't, for mod, it's one of those things where, like, if it doesn't pass our, satisfactory, levels, and if this is something that I wouldn't purchase myself, um, we don't sell it to the consumer. So we'll
Right.
test and test and test, and if something isn't right, like, we won't just produce it and just like, oh, let me get your money.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, we put our name on it. I put my name on it, and it's something that we stand behind. And then we have very good warranties and customer service with stuff. So, and we always try and help, the customer at the end of the day. But knowing that when it goes out the door, this is something that I would put in my personal race rig, to go out on a weekend.
Yep.
So,
And the companies you partner with also have great customer service too. Like I've dealt with NSDRC. You guys do servos with them.
yep,
Greatest
yep.
guys in the world.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and I was looking for a servo for a long time, in all honesty, and I was testing stuff, and it wasn't right. It wasn't right. And these
Yep.
guys came along, I ran their stuff, and I'm like, it's pretty sucking good, dude. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're strong, they're doing what they need to do. So I was hitting them up and I was like, hey, would you like to work a deal? And he was all about it. So, now we have a personalized one that we do, and I think we're the only ones with that. Because we're kind of the main, racing fifth scale,
Yeah.
pro shop type of thing. Like, we're really well known for that. So,
You're
it's a
always
it's
the
a good thing.
first webpage I go to. Always.
Yeah.
And
Well,
even before
appreciate
I
that.
was on the team.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Joey's but my co-host is, hey, Joey had to work tonight. We usually do the show on a Sunday night. He works night shift at Cummins.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, he had to work. I'm like, dude, you're gonna miss it. He's like, I know. Him and I are gonna do an episode all about Oval on Sunday. He's got me going down that dang rabbit hole. I, I, I tried one last week. I'm like, it's fun, but it didn't hook me the same way as like fifth scale. It hooked me about the
Yeah.
same. same as like Mini Truggy did. It's like, it's something to do on my off Saturdays.
Yeah, I've driven some oval. I think it's more fun with more people.
It
If you
is.
do it by yourself, I think it's kind of boring.
I'm
Um,
racing in the biggest class.
but if there's like a lot of people around you, I'm like, it's pretty cool. And I actually raced. I ran the 128 scale pan car out
Okay.
there, and I thought they were always just mini Z's.
Yeah.
With the little AAA batteries. These things are full scaled down on road cars, two-wheel drive mostly because everything in sedan is all everything else is four-wheel drive. These things are
Yep.
two-wheel drive, and they're on crack.
Yeah.
And it's like full ceramic bearings, tungsten plates, brass, this and that. And I'm like, little tiny tires. And, I'm seeing like the cost of this. And I'm like, this is pretty coul. And I ran
It
it and I'm
is.
like, yeah, I'm like, this is really bitching. And we actually took some box stocks out. We had a mod race
Yep.
with all the crew that for the live and ran those around. And I had a big smile on my face. I had a lot of fun. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to get one of these things because Huckleberry, where I announced that, they have a little track right there. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Maybe we need to get something going with this. And it was a lot of fun. So I think I might be getting a car or two. We'll see. Just to play around with.
The cool thing about Mini Z is if your buddy has a big basement and he's got 20 guys over anyways drinking beer on a Saturday night, you got to race.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So it's really cool, and I think it's cost effective, affordable racing. That's what they were kind of like pushing out
Yes.
there. And from their tires being like, $5 or $10 a pair.
That's not bad.
Um, the some of the cars out there $200 or something to kind of get started, like an RTR is $180, but you can get into one of those cars for probably like $500-600 to be really competitive.
Right.
And it's racing,
Yeah.
it's full on, and you could set them up pretty much anywhere, and the transponders are like $25, and
Is it the infrared transponders?
yeah, infrared easy lap. I
Yep.
wish they were on A and B because I saw a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. They got to
So
be right in that windshield.
so there's that inherent issue. Like I think My Laps has an opportunity if they created a smaller transponder, because like the normal My Laps now, those are too
Yeah.
big.
Really?
They have to get something at least 1/3 the size
Oh,
of
wow.
the current transponder to make it possible and draw that community in, which I think if they know about it, I think it's possible. It's possible because then you'd kind of get away from that issue of the infrared
Yes.
issue.
Yeah, and
So
yeah, I've dealt with infrared in the past to it. Local clubs that didn't have the money for the MyLab system, they ran the infrared, and we used it, and we had like Torot used to race at that club, stuff like that. But those transponders, yeah, you're right, they are just not it. I got a couple more listener questions, and then
yes,
I have to hit an ad, and then I'm hoping to have you for another question or two.
okay.
You're a super busy guy, and I don't want to keep you for too long.
Actually, I'm gonna take my mom out to dinner tonight.
Oh,
She's been wanting me to, like, hey, can we go to dinner sometime? I
yeah.
feel bad. Like, yes, we need to I'm gonna
Yes.
take you out to
Yeah.
dinner. So we're gonna
Yeah.
do a two for chili. So love my mom.
Nice.
She's amazing. She helps me out a lot. So
Heck
I'm
yeah.
gonna take her out to
John
dinner.
Bolton's wondering, how's your racing program with all that you have going on? Any thoughts of quitting racing and doing the business only?
John, it's like Eustace said to me one time, "Are you working or are you playing?" And that was kind of like, something he drilled into me. And it's tough to for me now that I'm self-employed, I have much more respect for that saying. And I think that the work does come first, but there can always be play.
Right.
um and luckily for me, I don't I'm not personally able to like have enough time to build my own cars and go down on a Tuesday night club race or something, or something like that where I have to focus to go out there anymore. But I am able to still Like my fifth scale rigs, they're still, up to date, they're fresh.
Yes.
And now we have a new mod pro builds done by Jake McGarvey, and he worked on all the Wolfpack rigs. So I had him, I gave him my cars. We offer that service now. And so he prepped them all. Um, I would be running them and I would keep them up, but they would always just be like, you know, good enough to run. These things
Right.
are good, but they didn't have fresh oils. Everything wasn't tight and fit. I was like, this is sloppy. I don't care. It's still running.
Yep.
Um, I gave it to him to say, hey, I need this thing refreshed. I need it cleaned. I need it done. And I don't trust anybody with my rigs, and I trust him. So I'm still able to race, and I can get like my employees and buddies,
Yeah.
Jason and Chris, where they're able to then help me out and go and do something where I'm like, hey, this thing broke. Take the car
Yeah.
and work on it. I need you to replace this arm. I need you to make this setup change. Um, so I think it's become where I've had to basically employ people to keep my race program going and
Well,
or help. And then Sammy also, lent me his truck, and he would work on it. I would go out there, I'd glue some tires and make some setup changes while I was
right.
there. But I still love to race. I do. I'm a
Yes.
racer at heart. But the work comes first because everybody relies on that. Jason and Chris rely on it, uh, to pay them and pay everything else, and keep mod going. So that's my main goal at the end of the day. But I still love racing.
Yep. So Mod's a three-man band. I forgot you have Chris and Jason also working for you
Yep.
too.
Yeah,
I
so Jason works with me in the shop. He's
Yep.
usually here full time. The only times that he realistically goes other places is where we need him for fifth scale events,
Yep.
because it takes so many people to do that, as
Yes.
well as some coverage events here and there. Other than that, he won't be in the shop, and if not, he's in the shop filling your day-to-day orders and everything like that. And then he subs in and out. Chris will he's either on the road with me, or he's basically at the shop, and he'll come in and help us on our off weeks,
Okay.
to kind of help out Jason and get us caught up on different stuff. And then I filter in here and going to MIP and checking on stuff. I'm out, and I'm kind of a little bit everywhere, making sure stuff happens.
Right. So I'm actually wondering this too. Jeremiah is wondering, with you Frankensteining cars together, having access to tooling and being able to run your own prototypes, is there any chance you'd want to produce a car of your own someday? That's a tough one, isn't it?
It would have to be the right market that you could do, and probably fifth scale would be it for
Yeah.
us. Because you have to have the name in it, right? And you have to know,
Yes.
like, okay, this is what's worked, and can you do this all in one package and produce it all yourself? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, um, and it's a lot of money.
Yes.
And that's one of my things is I really don't have any debt.
Yep.
I've got good debt as far as like mortgage payments and stuff like that, but I don't have any school debt, or I don't have any debt. Like once we do a run of something, I pay it off. I own everything, and I don't
Yes.
take loans out. I don't have credit card bills. Um, I don't like owing anybody any money or anything like that. And so I think in a way that might hurt us. But in a way, whenever I try and make really, really big moves really fast, and overstep and overreach, it always seems to bite me. I've done it.
Right.
I've done it a couple times, and it's bit me every time I do that. So I take the slow route now, where small building blocks, of building something up, and that's worked out better for me than trying to make quick money really fast or try and rush a job. That's bitten me every time. So
Yep.
I'm just not good at that.
Well, some people don't know how much it costs to tool an entire vehicle too. And if a mold
it's
is wrong, or if
I
it's
don't know what it is now,
it
but I
used to be
know
about a
it's
mill and a half.
It's about $250 to $600,000.
Yeah, 'cause I
That
remember.
I know, and that could
Yeah.
be old numbers.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
remember when I wanna say O'Donnell tried buying, because remember when O'Donnell had his A-scale
mhm.
buggy, is actually a legit car. Um, he tried buying his own molds and tooling and all that junk back from the company that was making it, and they literally gave him it was a price tag of $1,000,000. But that could have been an angry price, if that makes sense.
Yeah, an FU price kind of thing.
Yeah, because I can overinflate tools all day long myself. Um, Before we get to the end of the episode, I'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Party Crashers. Now, you'd like this one, Matt. He's out there growing the RC market. Party Crashers brings off-road fun to you. They go to 40 different community ed events. He does privates, birthdays. He wants to do a wedding for RC. I've gone to like fundraiser events. He goes, we will be doing some ice racing this winter, so get a hold of him.
I've done
Besides
that.
10, yeah, he goes, besides our 10 scale tracks, we offer 128 scale associated short course trucks. And if you have super limited space, and I've driven these before, they're pretty cool. He's got 176 scale micro RCs and a track to rent whenever you want for a family gathering or party. So go check out Party Crashers on Facebook, or go to www.partycrashersrc.com for upcoming events and information on rentals.
Very cool. That's awesome. Get more people into it. And I've actually done racing on ice. It was
Yeah.
a Canadian St. Paulin. It was in St. Paulin, Canada, and we were
Okay.
racing in a um where was it? It was a baseball field. They had a little
Yeah.
Zamboni out there and everything. You can look it up if you go on YouTube
Yeah.
and look up Spin on Ice. That's what it was called.
Yes.
Spin on
So
Ice, 1/5 scale. That was super cool. You
he
had little ice
does.
cutters and everything.
He,
It was cool.
he makes his own wheels that are
Yeah,
pretty successful. I never made it out last winter. They race out on a lake.
nuts.
So
It's nuts. Yeah, it's
yeah,
super cool.
yeah, it's a Minnesota Canada thing. We should be more afraid of the ice, but we are not. Um, let's see here. Okay, so can we talk about any new releases for the fifth scale coming up? I don't want to say too much.
We have stuff in the works. For I don't want to mention too much. We've got stuff in the works, so
Right
there is
on.
stuff in the works.
That sounds good. Personal question. Did you have an issue with the anodizers with the shocks? I was just wondering because they were out of stock.
No, that's not an issue. That's one of those things where it's so much money to do shocks. Like, it's a lot of money.
Yes, it
It's our
is.
most expensive project to undertake. And I have right now sitting up in the rafters over here, uh, probably about 600 or 700 springs of each of the
Oh,
springs that you get, because I had to make a run of them. So I had to make a
yeah.
run of, I think, $15,000 worth of springs.
Yep.
And that made us basically 3 runs. I went through one run, so I think I have two more runs of, at least before I'm gonna have to make springs again. So I
Yeah.
made that investment, a year and a half ago, and it's just sitting up in the rafters.
Yep.
And I always like to do something new and fresh for every, iteration of the shocks.
Okay.
Um, and they're really good now. Like, they're really good now.
You're on
I think
version 4 right now, right?
version 4.5.
4.5.
So 4.5, and that's current. Um, I think and a lot of the stuff was some cap changes that we did. There was very minimal changes from 4 to 5.
Yep.
I think we're still going to be on a version 4.5 because they are so good. But I think we're going to have this time, speaking of anodizers, we're going to do certain colors for the
Okay.
bodies. So the
Yep.
bodies will be different colors so people can personalize and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't think that they're going to change much. A version 5 would be far out from what I could see.
Yeah.
But a version 4.5, I think that's more personalized because everybody likes colors and they like to, get, oh, this would be perfect. So probably a limited edition run of that kind of stuff will be what we do for that, and that will be the next iteration.
Well, I'm excited to get some myself because I've never felt shock fade until you're out there for about 10 to 12 minutes. And then it's like,
Yeah.
huh, my truck feels like the oil all of a sudden feels very thin. It's like,
Yeah, and it does. It just starts to fatigue. The stock shocks are fine, like you said, for
yeah,
10 minutes, 8 to 10, and then you just start blowing through the pack. It starts
yep,
getting worse, and you'd see that where, guys would be on pace with you, whatever, but when you got the mod shocks on there, it's just in the longer mains, your car feels the same, and it
yep.
doesn't fatigue. So, and yeah, it's an advantage.
So can we get back to mod media for a couple more things?
Okay, no problem.
John Bolton, he's wondering how close are you to full TV coverage? Let's say X Network wants to show Aurora Nats. Could you do it?
So, full TV coverage. I don't know how they hook into that.
Okay.
I don't even know of the tech. In all honesty, I'm not, you know, I'm not up on that. Like if they're streaming it live, if
Yep.
they're taking that and they're saying, okay, we're gonna play this later. Like for instance, Live RC has a deal with, I believe, Mav TV,
Yep.
um, where they make like a video for them, or a TV show.
Yep.
So it would be one of those things where I don't know how they would like to do it. It'd probably be on that status, of here's a refined thing. Do you think this is entertaining? And present that to them.
Right.
Rather than, NFL live football's on today, and now it's RC
You
racing,
can't. Yeah.
and we're doing the whole live thing. I don't know if we're at that point. And I don't even have the tech or the contacts that would even, I don't even know where to start.
You,
Nor have I
you're.
tried, I guess.
I was gonna say you kind of have a little bit of context because you did battle bots. Are you still doing battle bots?
Yep, I'm the driver of Lucky on BattleBots on Discovery Channel.
Yes.
So do have contacts there, but like for instance with that, even so, there's no, like, they've got a live show that they do that's behind closed doors. That's not
Yep.
broadcast out to anybody.
Right.
And they
And they.
bring in people that are paid, and that's called Destructathon. You can get tickets in Vegas and do
Okay.
everything like that. But for even the show that you see on Discovery Channel, we shot that back in October of
Yes.
last year. And to
Yes.
put it in perspective for you and everybody else out there, the production to make that happen is $100,000 an hour.
Yep.
So,
I
and we
I
shoot for
kind
two
of get that.
weeks.
Oh wow. So you
So,
shoot for 2 weeks straight, then they
two,
edit and release episode by episode.
correct. So we shoot for 2 weeks straight. There's generally one or two down days that
Yep.
people can go and explore or work on the bot. And you have to have your stuff ready to go, back up and going. Um, and
That
and
sounds like high pressure.
it's a team. It's a team
Yeah.
of, anywhere from 3 to 10 people. Each person has their own kind of job or what they do. Um, and the production of it, you have to have, a theme, and you have to create, and as well as you have to perform. Like
Yeah.
in the
Oh
last
yeah.
2 years, Lucky has we've progressed a lot on the driving side, to kind of like we were, we're still, I would say, an underdog for, kind of the technology that we
Okay.
currently have in it, but we're upgrading him. But you know, you have to be competitive still. You have to
Yes.
make good TV. If you're not making good TV at the end of the day, which is what Lucky wasn't really doing so much for the last couple seasons, but now we
Yep.
are,
Okay.
because then you're able to stay in because people want that slot, right? There's
Yep.
only like 60 teams.
Hey, so a personal question I have. Have you
Sorry if
met?
I'm out here for a second.
No, you're fine. You're just frozen. There you are. All right.
My
Have
mom
you?
is contacting me. She wants to go out to eat.
All right. I only got a couple
Let me
more
see
questions.
here. I'm gonna tell her heading home
No,
soon.
you're
Give me a second.
fine. There's one question about BattleBots and one question about mod media I got, and one more listener question, I think. Quick question about BattleBots. Have
Yes.
you met Kenny Florian?
Yes, I have, actually.
He was one of my all-time favorite fighters, and he used to do analyst work for Fox Sports when the UFC was on Fox Sports. And then when they got the ESPN deal, he got iced out, and I was so bummed.
Uh, yeah, it's super cool guy, very friendly. Um, Little shorter than I thought he would be,
Yeah,
but he's a burly dude, so he's
he
very cool, and everybody's cool there at BattleBots. Like,
I want to
um,
say he fought from 185 pounds all the way to the end of his career. He was trying to make 145 pounds.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
those guys are
it's
nuts.
yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
So, but it's a ton of fun, and it's yeah, it's crazy. It's an experience. You don't get paid, well, at least the rest of the team, the the main head captain, he gets some money
Yep.
for keeping it up, but I've gone in there sometimes and I've gone through 8 grand to 10 grand worth of stuff in 3 minutes.
Jeez.
you
Yeah.
know, because everything's custom. You can't go to your
Yeah.
local hobby shop and get this part for Lucky. Like
No.
all the chassis are,
Mhm.
everything CNC cut and then aluminum welded. Each chassis is like $1,500,
Yeah.
for Lucky, and that's like at homie hookup price.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, it's expensive. A lot of
Um,
titanium armor, AR 500 armor,
yes.
pneumatics. It's a lot.
Yes. James Rodriguez is wondering, there's a huge oval market needing attention, especially dirt oval. Have you looked into that at all, or are
So
you just more fist
it's
scale and
it's
pucks and
on it's on my radar right now for nothing really dirt oval fifth scale, but dirt over 10th scale. That's on my hopefully in 2024 we're going to be doing some stuff for the oval market.
ooh,
I'm wanting to.
Kyle's got a question. Does Discovery own all the bots and you get a set allowance to make upgrades to the bots, or does every team own their own bot?
So the teams own their own bot. You get monies once you pass tech inspection, and you're
Okay.
guaranteed X amount of fights, and they give you monies per fight, if
Right.
that makes
Okay.
sense.
That
But
makes a lot of sense.
it's a percentage of what you actually spend. You're
All right.
not going to go into it making money. Even the
No.
winner that gets 50 grand or whatever it is, that's probably what you spent to be there.
Yeah. I don't know if you are aware of tractor pulling, but I was drinking with a dude one night and he knew a guy, and we ended up actually talking to that guy who was a national tractor pulling champion, and he'd win like at the main championships 150 grand or whatever it was, and that would every single penny go back into his rig.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's not a money maker, and that's
No.
kind of like one of the issues that's in that community right now.
Yep.
With some of the stuff where they're fighting for where they have more, and it's been better, I guess. This last year, it's gotten a lot better, for the bot builders, but it's the production and the union stuff and just everything. And I don't know all the inner workings of it. I just
Yep.
know that the main Trey is the main guy. Him and his cousin uh, have started BattleBots with Comedy Central and everything. And
Yep.
his dad is like a billionaire, and
Oh
he
yeah.
owns like half the Kings. He owns like a hotel in Vegas. So I'm not saying that Trey isn't good off on his own, but he's got, good financial backing,
There's
to
nothing wrong with
make it
that.
happen.
Yeah,
You
there's
know.
nothing wrong. We need one of those guys in RC racing.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. We need people to be able to buy the buildings that they're putting RC tracks in. Like if you look at every common denominator that it is for these 10 scale tracks going away, it's because they don't own the property. I think there was one like Swifties RC or something
Yeah.
that just went away, and they sold the building, and then it goes to some new owner, and they jack up the price, and it's just not possible to make it with our industry. And it's like, dude,
Well,
so you need
well,
to
that's
own the building.
yes. That's how drone racing got big, because the owner of the Miami Dolphins absolutely loved it, and they let him race in the stadium.
Yeah.
So one more or two more questions here. Are you able to talk about any software yet for Mod Media? We were
Software for yes. So the stuff that we use for our overlays and everything like that
Yep.
is it's in combination and in partnership with rcgtiming.com and
Okay.
rcgarage.info.
I love RC
And
Garage.
yes, so go on there and claim your profile. Everybody that's watching this right now, go and look
Yes.
up your name on rcgarage.info, claim your profile.
Yeah.
And that has all your analytics from whenever you've been racing RC cars for like the past 8 years.
Yes.
And with that information, as well as the partnership that we have been able to try and take the coverage to that next level. That's why you see all the profile pictures popping up now, the livery of the cars. And that really, we've been working together for a little bit now. And we really popped it off and kind of showed the world at the Worlds, what
Right.
it's capable of.
Oh, it was really nice.
Yeah. And
It was
that
really
was its own timing and everything. It's world level championship timing and scoring and everything. So you could
yes.
even get it for your local track.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because I tried a prototype of it in Vegas, and it's like you were starting races with your cell phone. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something cool, and we're constantly working on it. So but yeah, it's available for tracks now. I'm not going to say that it's perfect.
Yeah,
There's a little bugs here and there. But it is very, very good.
competition breeds the best of everything. So I'm glad you're doing something out there. One more question. We'll end it on a listener question. Lynn is wondering, how strong of a servo does it take to survive a battle bot?
There are no servos realistically in BattleBots.
Oh,
Everything is everything's tank steer or everything's motorized.
gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Because for a
no
while,
no real servos. There's nothing. They don't have a bell crank system. It's all
okay.
tank steer. So it just moves, one
Yep.
wheel's faster than the other wheel.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So there's like no, like on some of the bots where there's like a saw that comes down. Is that more of a hydraulic thing?
That'll be even like a motor,
Gotcha.
that it spins one way, spins back. I
Gotcha.
guess you could consider that a servo. I don't know, but there's no like a whole bunch of gear sets in there and doing left
Yeah.
and right and adjusting. It's not like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Matt, I could keep you for another hour, but you have to take your mom to dinner, and
I do,
I
I
have
do.
to.
She just messaged me, so I'm like,
Yes.
call her and say, hey, we're going.
Yes.
So
I
I got to
have to
drive.
go to bed. I really appreciate your time, and I really want you on again. So yeah,
Do
thank
it.
you for coming on tonight, and yeah, have a great rest of 2023 racing, and we'll definitely talk again soon.
We'll be talking, buddy. You guys have a good night. See you
Have a
later.
good
Thanks for
night.
tuning in, and thanks for all the support.
Yep, bye.